You're watching FISM News.
On Monday, President Donald Trump said his administration will be taking major steps to strengthen the economy against the impact of the spreading coronavirus outbreak. He added he will be discussing a payroll tax cut with congressional Republicans.
House of Representatives Speaker Nancy Pelosi and Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer told reporters that any payroll tax cut should be limited to those affected by the virus. They also said they are crafting new legislation on the heels of the $8.3 billion corona funding enacted last week. That might be ready to be introduced this week.
It's quite a bit of money to put towards the coronavirus.
I know. We'll have to see what their new plans are.
Yeah. Among proposals that could be included are ensuring water supplies are maintained for people even if they cannot pay their bills as a result of the crisis, expanded unemployment insurance, medical leave, and providing food for children who rely on school nutrition programs if schools are shut.
Vice President Mike Pence said the administration was consulting with Congress on providing paid sick leave to workers, an idea that Democrats have been trying to advance. The Trump administration move comes as stock markets plunge and top health officials urge some people to avoid cruise ships, air travel, and big public gatherings, which is probably for the best.
I would say so, especially if you want to avoid getting the virus.
On Tuesday, Russian President Vladimir Putin opened the door to constitutional changes that would allow him to remain in power until 2036, if he chose to do so.
In January, Putin unveiled a major shakeup of Russian politics, along with a constitutional overhaul. He is required by the Constitution to step down in 2024 when his second sequential and fourth presidential term ends.
But this week, Putin gave what he suggested was his reluctant blessing to a proposed change to the Constitution that would formally reset his presidential term tally to 0, allowing him to serve another 2 back-to-back 6-year terms.
Putin has not spelled out what his plans are after that date, however, but has said he does not favor the Soviet-era practice of having leaders for life who die in office. Though for any of this to happen, it would need to be adopted and backed in a nationwide vote on April. Former Hollywood producer Harvey Weinstein was convicted last month of rape and sexual assault. This week, his lawyers have asked a New York court to take into consideration his health and age and sentence him to prison for 5 years.
Weinstein, who is 67 years old, faces up to 29 years in prison after being found guilty of sexually assaulting former production assistant Mimi Haley in 2006 and raping former aspiring actress Jessica Mann in 2013.
Last week, Weinstein was transferred to New York's Rikers Island jail complex from Bellevue Hospital after undergoing a procedure to clear a heart blockage. In the signed letter asking for a 5-year sentence, Weinstein's lawyers mentioned his poor health and age, as well as his accomplishments and charitable endeavors.
But New York prosecutors said last week Weinstein should get a prison sentence that reflects not only his conviction for sexually assaulting 2 women, but a lifetime of abuse towards others and a track record of treating others with disdain and inhumanity.
In addition to his convictions in New York, Weinstein faces several felony charges in Los Angeles in connection with alleged sexual assaults against 2 women in 2013. The Afghan government said on Wednesday it would free 1,500 Taliban prisoners in order to begin peace talks between the Taliban and the United States.
The Taliban promised to open talks with the Afghan government as part of the accord reached with the United States last month to end the 18 years of U.S. involvement in war in Afghanistan.
Militants say the agreement requires the government to release 5,000 prisoners before talks begin. However, the Afghan government says the talks must begin and violence must subside before it will free them all. The other 3,500 prisoners will be set free as conditions are met, according to Afghanistan's presidential spokesman, Sadiq Siddiqui.
Despite the accord between the United States and the Taliban, fighting has continued in various parts of the country. Italian Prime Minister Giuseppe Conte announced that all of Italy will be under lockdown until April 3rd in an attempt to slow the spreading of the coronavirus. The government has told all citizens to stay home and avoid all non-essential travel.
For at least the next 3 weeks, anyone traveling in Italy will have to carry a document declaring their reasons for travel. Outdoor events, including sports fixtures, regular weddings, and funerals, have been suspended, and schools and universities are all closed.
Joe Biden scored primary victories in Michigan and 3 other states on Tuesday, leaping past Bernie Sanders in the race for the Democratic Party's presidential nomination. Biden's victory in the key state of Michigan, the biggest delegate prize of the night, dealt a blow to Sanders. Sanders had hoped for a win in Michigan to keep his White House bid in the lead. Speaking in Philadelphia, Biden thanked Sanders and made an appeal for party unity.
And I want to thank Bernie Sanders and his supporters for their tireless energy and their passion. We share a common goal, and together we'll defeat Donald Trump.
Michigan is a crucial battleground that Trump narrowly and unexpectedly won in 2016. Biden, in his Tuesday night speech, said a second term for Trump was not an option. According to exit polls by Edison Research, voters in the 6 states that voted on Tuesday said they trusted Biden over Sanders to handle a major crisis.
The U.S. arrested more than 250 people and seized 1,323 pounds of illegal narcotics on Wednesday as part of a broader crackdown known as Project Python.
The announcement comes about a month after the U.S. unveiled criminal charges against the daughter of the cartel's recognized leader, Nemesio Cervantes, better known as El Mencho, and extradited his son to the U.S. to stand trial.
Justice Department officials said that in its 6-month run, Project Python has led to the arrest of more than 750 people tied to the cartel and the seizure of 20,000 kilograms, or roughly 44,000 pounds of drugs.
Wow. A grand jury last month returned a second superseding indictment against El Mencho. He remains at large, and the State Department has offered a $10 million reward for information that leads to his arrest. Here's what you need to know about the coronavirus outbreak today. There are now more than 126,000 cases of coronavirus globally after the World Health Organization called the outbreak a pandemic for the first time on Wednesday.
As the WHO stressed that this is the time for precautionary measures, President Donald Trump announced he will be closing the U.S. borders to Europe Friday night. The month-long travel restriction to the United States from Europe will not apply to Britain or to Americans undergoing appropriate screenings.
Flights from Europe can operate to a limited number of U.S. airports with enhanced screening, but only U.S. citizens, permanent residents, and immediate family members will be allowed in. These tight restrictions put a severe dent in the passenger base and consequently the U.S. tourism industry. The news hit financial markets hard, with stocks continuing downward.
These new travel restrictions come as Italy saw the sharpest increase in cases, with over 2,300 in 24 hours. Accounting for a third of all new cases in the past day. A total of 196 people died in Italy over the last 24 hours, the largest rise in absolute numbers in the country since the contagion came to light on February 21st.
10 people died in the collapse of a Chinese city hotel after state media said the building was being used to quarantine individuals under watch for the coronavirus.
The hotel began to collapse on Saturday evening. As we record this, authorities have retrieved 48 individuals from the site of the collapse, the ministry said. Of that total, 10 have been confirmed dead, with the rest being treated in hospitals. Tensions were high in the streets of Mexico City on Sunday as thousands of women took to the street, angry at the wave of gender-based violence hitting the country.
Women smashed through security barriers erected around the city's monuments, damaging landmarks and writing graffiti on historic statues to demand authorities do more to stop femicides. Molotov cocktails were aimed at the home to the government, the National Palace.
The campaign for action on gender-based violence in Mexico has recently gained momentum with 2 high-profile murders. One victim, a 25-year-old woman who was killed by her alleged partner, and the other, a 7-year-old girl who was reportedly taken from her school.
At least 10 women are murdered every day in Mexico, according to authorities. Activists hope the huge turnout on Sunday will spur officials to action. U.S. stocks resumed trading after being halted as the benchmark S&P 500 index plunged 7% and triggered an automatic 15-minute cutout shortly after the opening bell on Monday. Trading resumed on Monday following a 22% slump in oil prices.
Saudi Arabia's move to raise oil production significantly after OPEC's supply cut agreement with Russia collapsed sent ripples across global financial markets. And keep in mind that these markets are already facing the impact of the COVID-19 outbreak.
And even so, crude oil logged its worst day in almost 3 decades, sending oil majors Chevron Corp and ExxonMobil Corp down more than 9%. The energy index slumped 20.1%. On Monday, Dan Celia, financial analyst and host of the syndicated talk show Financial Issues, shared his thoughts on the drop in oil prices.
We could easily end up in price wars. We've got oil down 23, 24, 25% this morning. And let me tell you something. As of today, you're going to see a dramatic cut in rig counts. There's going to be layoffs by the end of this week in the oil sector from the fields, from a production perspective. We cannot operate on $35 a barrel oil. We can't operate on $40 a barrel oil. We are now far below in Brent crude oil, far below Russia's budget.
Over the last few years, Brazilian gangs have become some of the top suppliers of cocaine to Europe, transforming the country's role in the transatlantic drug trade at a speed that has stunned anti-narcotics authorities. In Santos, which is Latin America's largest port, one Brazilian customs inspector told Reuters reporters that the drug gangs now use decoy construction equipment, hiding blocks of the white powder in second-hand backhoes destined for Europe. But cracking down at the source is a challenge. During the joint anti-narcotics mission last year, suspects vanished into the jungle at the sound of approaching aircraft. Police made just 3 arrests.
Facebook and Twitter said this week they had taken down a network of Russian-linked fake accounts operated out of Ghana and Nigeria, which targeted the United States. Facebook told reporters that the network was in the early stages of building audiences and was operated by local nationals, some wittingly and some unwittingly on behalf of individuals in Russia. The network was removed from Facebook and Instagram for engaging in foreign interference. The removed Facebook pages posed as non-governmental organization, NGOs, and personal blogs, and also posted in Facebook groups. They focused on topics such as Black history, Black excellence and fashion, celebrity gossip, U.S. news, and LGBTQ issues. They also shared negative content about oppression and police brutality. Facebook's head of cybersecurity policy, Nathan Gleicher, told reporters on a conference call that the network's technique appeared to be attempting to create an NGO that had real-world people working for it on the ground in Ghana as a way to build legitimacy for their narratives and use that to message out. Twitter characterized the accounts, many of which were created in July 2019, as attempting to sow discord by engaging in conversations about social issues like race and civil rights.
Thank you for watching. This has been FISM News.